Okay. Hello, everyone. Say hi below if you know me, and if you're brand new here, please also say where you're from and what you need, and I'll say hi. So, I am able to be heard in my relationship. I know my husband hears me when I have something important I want to share with him. But it wasn't always that way. I didn't always feel like, yes, I'm going to be understood. I'm going to be remembered. He's going to take action on these things. So I'm going to teach you today how you can create that dynamic in a relationship where you have the certainty that you will be heard. Okay? So I have some notes over here I'm just going to be looking at as I go. So if you're here, you are asking for something very simple. You just want to be acknowledged. You want your voice to matter. And that is not a lot to ask or even expect of in your very most important relationship. So if it's not a lot to ask, why is it so much of a problem for so many people? You always hear women saying, oh, my husband always forgets what I say, or I say something and it's like it doesn't even matter. He doesn't do anything. And then things go back to normal. So I'm going to tell you why and what you can do about it. So before I knew what I knew now, this is how I would communicate. Every time I didn't like something, I would complain about it. I would say, hey, I don't like that. Why do you always do that? Why did you forget what I asked for? I would just register my displeasure in the moment of things not going the way I wanted them to. That seemed like a normal thing for me to do. And whenever something came to mind that I needed, I would just ask for it in the moment. I would just say, hey, there's this thing going on. I need this. We're going here on this day. Just whenever things would pop up and I would say them out loud. And that just was a natural way for me to communicate. But guess what? It didn't work. Half the time he forgot stuff. Sometimes he remembered stuff. I couldn't tell why some things got through and other things didn't. And when it was something that really mattered to me, I would feel really hurt. This is when I just thought men and women were all the same, and I just was judging my husband based on how my sister and my mother and my best friends operate. And truth be told, he doesn't make a very good woman. So what do I do now that makes it so different? Well, I have more of a process now where I'm intentional and conscious about how I communicate. And the first thing is I figure out what I want. And this seems so obvious because of course you want things, and that's why you're here. But genuinely, most women will talk to their husbands mostly about what they don't want. They'll say, I don't like it when you do this. I don't like it when you do that. Why are you always forgetting? They'll ask these rhetorical questions like why, but there has never been or rarely been a clear indication of I want this. This is what I want. And sometimes we haven't taken the time to honestly know what we want and be able to articulate it. So you have to start there. You have to be careful not making I want statements about things that really he has no control over. So you can't say like, I want to feel supported. Well, sure, you want to feel supported, but how you feel is really only under your control. And what can he do about that? He doesn't know. So you would want to think, what does it look like for me to be supported? And then make a request surrounding something he can do. It needs to be a tangible request for him, not just a complaint or not just a very vague desire about a feeling state you want to be in. That's good for you to know what feelings you want to have, but that's a different conversation where we work on creating feelings for yourself. So I'm going to give you an example of how I went from being unheard to being heard. So I am a very affectionate person. I like lots of cuddles and hugs and touches and everything. And those things just weren't happening very much in my relationship. And I couldn't figure out why. Of course, that's the first thing we go to. Why is this not happening? Why is this not happening? And we make assumptions and we make theories about why. But really, I just wanted it to happen. And so I would complain about it and say, how come we never hug? How come we don't hold hands? How come this is not a normal part of our relationship? And you just say like, well, I don't know, or I forget, or it's not really my personality. And that left us where we started. It's not like I started getting what I wanted. Even if I said, well, I want more of that. I want more of that. It wasn't landing. I wasn't really being heard. So when I did this process in this way, it was like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about something that's really important to me, right? Is this a good time? And then I said, I really love getting random hugs. I like getting those hugs that are like in the kitchen or the living room that have nothing to do with like I'm saying goodbye or I'm saying I'm coming back, but are just totally unexpected and are just all the time. And not only do I love getting these, but they really give me energy and joy. They make me feel loved and appreciated and beautiful and desired. And I have more energy for the day. I'm more patient with the kids. It just makes my day to be getting these kind of random hugs. And that was how I expressed to him what it would do for me if I would get these things, right? And he heard that because I was very, very clear about exactly what it was about. And he started doing it, and I appreciated him when he did it. And I said, thank you. Oh, that feels so great. I love it. And what happens over time is because of this process, now it is a natural part of our relationship. Now this is a habit. And instead, women will complain a couple times, not be heard, and then it'll be over. And then you're like stuck, and now you're disappointed, and you're thinking you're never going to get affection in your relationship, or you're going to never get celebrated, or you're never going to get the things you want because you think your husband doesn't care about what you say. But 9 times out of 10, he really does care. He cares about you. He cares about what you say. It's just that he can't hear you well when you're just randomly complaining, randomly expressing. Okay? So let's talk about the elements to this being heard. Number 1 is you figure out what you want. You can't just start a conversation. You can't just go with from the negative. You have to be crystal clear on what do I want, right? The next thing is you choose your moment wisely. So you do not want to approach him while he's focused on something else, or while he's in transition between things, or just make sure that there's not some other stuff preoccupying him completely, because then he won't hear you. And it's not because you did anything wrong or anything's wrong with you. It's just that his focus will be elsewhere. So choose a good moment. Then I ask, is this a good moment? Because you're not always going to know, and you're not going to be a mind reader what's the perfect moment for him. But you say, is this a good time? You know, is this a good time? I have something to share. That's really important. Go ahead and register. This is really important to me. You know, let him know this is important. I need your attention. Then you deliver your message, whatever it is you want to be heard on. And it could be really anything. Anything that you don't feel heard and you want to be heard. Okay? Let him know what his job is in that conversation. If you just want him to hold space for you, ask him to just listen or just hold you. Okay? If you want him to take action, give him a specific request. But don't assume that he's going to know what to do because you've told him the situation. Okay. So this pattern, this way of conscious communication, is something that is absolutely critical skill. Like, it's a communication skill you can gain. And when you gain it, you save yourself a lot of heartbreak, and you save yourself a lot of frustration and a lot of miscommunication, because you will know that this will allow you to be heard. Okay? However, you might think to yourself, oh, this won't work for me, like he doesn't listen, or that's too much work, or, you know, it'll change for a little bit. But then he always goes back to the old routine, right? And I've heard that so many times. And that's because there's a bigger problem here. And the bigger problem is not just that you're not being heard. The bigger problem is that you're co-creating a situation where your needs and your words are not significant in that relationship. So, for example, if you ask him to do something or change something, but you don't do something and you don't change something yourself, you'll be part of the energy pulling you back to the status quo. Because the relationship can't change unless both people change, right? And you know that. You want him to change. But what you're not realizing is that you also have to shift the way you respond to him, or else it will just go back to the old pattern. But when you're doing this, like, for example, when you're asking for affection, it might be hard to know, like, well, what do I have to do to change this cycle? I just want a hug, right? But actually, there is always an action and a response that we can take when we're asking for changes in our husband. So my change was I became very expressive about how it was to be hugged. I let him know every time how it felt, so that was clear reinforcement of, yes, this is very important to Shiloh. It matters to her a lot. Instead of just quietly thinking about those things and, you know, not thinking he needed to know. But it's hard to tell from the inside what you're doing, because you're already doing your best. You're already trying to show up as the best partner you can. So that's where I come in. That's where I can help you to see, like, what is my side of the dynamic Not that you have to blame yourself, not that you're bad, but we all have blind spots. We all have subconscious patterns holding us back. So you can feel free to message me if you want some feedback on what your role might be in the relationship. Okay, so let's review the elements of how to be heard. Okay, number 1, what do you want? Make sure you are crystal clear on what you want. Number 2, choose your moment wisely. Don't just start talking because it's on the top of your head. Make sure that this is a moment that your husband can be present to you and really listen. Number 3, ask for consent. Find out if he says, yes, I can focus on you. This is a moment I can be with you. And 4, deliver your message. And try to keep it short. You know, like, you want to go into detail about why it's important to you, but you don't want to get distracted on rabbit trails about it, right? Stay on message, because this is communication 101. If you want to be heard, stay on message, right? Pay attention to what you're talking about and don't be distracted to other things. And then the fifth one, and the most important one is, what will this provide for you? So this is his why. He's like, if I'm going to do this thing, if I'm going to take time and energy and focus away from my normal life towards this behavior or this action I'm being asked of, what's it going to do for her? You know, what is the payoff? Why does it matter? And so he cares about how you feel a lot, which means he needs to know how it will matter to you. It might feel a bit unnatural at first to put this big spotlight on your desires, like we're having a conversation about this is really important. But actually, that's you showing up and honoring yourself, right? Like, part of the reason when we're not heard in relationships is because we're not taking ourselves seriously. We're not believing we deserve what we want. There's a part of us that feels like, oh, it's a bit much. I'm being a bit needy, whatever. We're embarrassed to ask. We think things should happen automatically. But all those things are holding you back. Those are the subconscious things keeping you stuck. So if you're like, oh, I'm tired of these emotional hangovers, I'm tired of the conversations that never get me anywhere, they're on repeat, and you want to really become a woman who's like, I'm happily married, and I might be the first happily married woman in my lineage for like 7 generations, and I don't feel forgotten. I know he always remembers my stuff because he cares about me. Then I'd be happy to share with you my connection assessment, which is a one-on-one session with me, totally free, where I help you see what are those parts you're bringing to the table, what's the parts he's bringing to the table, and what are your next best steps to transform this relationship for the long term sustainably so you do not fall back into old patterns. So if this was valuable for you and you learned something here, please like, please share. And if you have questions or you have topics you'd like me to do the training on in other live trainings next week and beyond, please message me and I would love to answer all your questions. Have a really great day. See you later.